Hello, this is Robert, and I'm going to use Photoshop to blend two images of the Orion Nebula M42 together into one composite image. So my good buddy Jim provided me with a 5-second exposure of M42 and a 60-second and brighter exposure of that nebula. So let's go ahead and open them up both at the same time. So they're both in Photoshop. Here we go. I have the brighter image, 60-second exposure, and the dimmer image. I need the dimmer image because if you look here at the bright one, this center core part is blown out. We want to fix that with the dimmer image. We're going to blend it together. So to do that, let's go to my cheat sheet here. We're going to do steps 1 through 6. We're going to, as we already have loaded two images, a short and long exposure, I'm going to copy the contents of the dimmer image and paste it on top of the bright image. At that point, I'll have a layer on top of the background, 2 layers basically. One's a layer for editing, one is a background layer. Then I'm going to use the Move tool to adjust and align those images together. I may need to use the arrows to fine-tune that adjustment, and then I'm going to go into the second series, and that's a little more complex. So let's get them together first. So let's go to the dimmer image, Control A to select all, Control C to copy. Let's go to the bright image and Control V as in Victor to paste. So now I have my two images, but I'm not sure they're 100% lined up, so I'm going to Control plus to blow this up a little bit so I can see it a little better, maybe a little more, and grab my Move tool. Yeah, I really can't see both, so let's lower the opacity down to 50%. Now I can see them. All right, see the bright dot there, the bright image? So let's use the arrow to fine-tune that. That looks good. Let's bring opacity back to 100% and Control minus to shrink this back to the original size. So there we go. We've put two images together. Where's my cheat sheet? Okay, back to Word. Now I'm going to do this next section. Let's highlight that. I'm going to go to the Layers menu. I'm going to hide the mask, the dim image layer. Then I'm going to select the Brush tool, maybe resize it if I need it, and paint over that bright core area of the Orion Nebula. And so that the corners aren't too harsh, I'm going to then go to the Filter menu and add a Gaussian blur. About 20% should work for this example. Adjust the opacity down if too strong, and then put those two layers together. That is, flatten them. So let's go ahead and do that. Here we go. Let's go to Layers and Layer Mask and Hide All. Now I'm back to the bright background image, and I need to grab my brush tool right here. I think I can make this image a little bigger, so Control plus so I can see when I'm painting. Now I can make the brush a little bigger, so I'm going to come up in here and resize it just a little, and I'm going to brush this layer of the dimmer image through. I'm going to paint it in. All right, and white here is to reveal. It's by default, so I didn't mention it, but I'm painting this in, but that's kind of a harsh line. All right, so let's blend that a little bit. So let's go to Filters, Blur, and Gaussian blur, and add a little blur to that. All right, well, that looks about right to me, so about 27% for this example. And if I need to adjust that down, I can right here with the opacity. If that was too strong, I'll bring it down a bit. That looks good. We now can see that bright core from the dimmer image layer that we pasted in. So let's now flatten this image. Put the two layers together. So I'm going to, in the Layers panel, select any one of the layers, hold my Control key down, select the second layer, so they're both selected, and right-click my mouse and flatten. And now we got back to one background layer. All right, so what did we just do? Let's review. We did steps 7 through 12. We went to the Layers menu, hit the layers, used the brush tool, painted over the blown out core area, used the filter, the Gaussian blur to soften the edge. About 20% seemed to work. Adjusted the opacity a little, was a little strong, and then flattened them together. Now we're going to go to the third section here. Let's highlight that because we're almost done. Let's create a new layer, and There's some steps for that, and I'll walk you through it. Then we're going to go to the image menu and use the shadows and highlights adjustment. I may need to click more if I haven't gone to it in the past, and I'm going to change the highlight to 30%. After I do that, I'm going to repeat steps 7 through 12. I'm going to go to the layers menu, use the brush, add the filter, the Gaussian blur, adjust opacity, and then put them together. So let's go ahead and do that. So add a layer. So I'm going to right click on the layers panel, the one and only background layer, and just duplicate layer and accept the default name. And now I'm going to image and adjustments and shadows and highlights. And the first time I went to this, it was kind of a short list, so I'm going to open it up so you can see more options. And all I'm going to do is adjust the highlights around 30%. The defaults seem okay. Tone at 50, radius at 30, and go with that. Now that I've done that, I'm going to now repeat steps of the middle section. I'm going to go to the layers, and layer mask and hide all. All right, now I'm going to go to my brush, which is already selected because I just used it, and the size seems okay. I don't need to adjust it. I guess I could so you can see where it is. And I'm going to paint in. I might have painted too much. We'll see. I'm going to paint in this area to get some of the shadows and highlights back. All right, done. And I want to blur that, so I'm going to go to the filters and blur and Gaussian blur and play around with the percentage. All right, that looks good to me. I'm going to click on OK, and I may adjust the opacity a little bit just to soften that effect, the blur effect. That might be too much. Let's bring it back up a little. Okay, that looks good. And now that I've done that, I'm going to, in the layers panel, select one of the layers, hold the control key down, select the second. So they're both selected, right click my mouse and flatten, put them back as one. And did I finish all the steps? Let's see. I went through, yes, I did 7 through 12 again. I did flatten the image, so that is done. Let's go ahead and minimize that. I can adjust some other adjustments here. It looks like I could probably play around with the, let's see. Let's go to the hue and saturation a little bit and adjust that to taste. And let's go to, what else do I want to play with? Oh, contrast. That's always fun to tweak. Let's tweak that a little bit. I think that works. So I'm going to, again, in the layers panel, select one of the layers, the control key down, select the other two adjustments I just made, and flatten them. And that's it. There is the Orion Nebula with the core darkened with using two different exposures. So again, thanks, Jim, for the copies of the images, and I hope that helps everybody. Good luck.